Hey guys, how's it going? This is Benjamin Mena. I have actually one of my really good friends, Larry Nicholson. We're going to talk about job hunting advice, career advice, and he's just going to, I'm going to let him pepper me with questions for the next 12, or we'll say 5, 10 minutes. I have not prepared for any of the questions, so everything is going to be off the cuff. So I am sorry if there is a curse word. I am sorry if there's something else, but let me just go ahead and pour some more wine in my coffee cup before we get started. All right, Larry, let's go.
So Ben, I know you're really experienced at recruiting and job hunting and really helping people figure out what they need to do. So I'll just get right into it. Probably one of the biggest questions and concerns right now is for college students who graduate. What is the best advice you can give to college students recently graduated, job hunting advice if they don't have actual experience, but the employers tell them they need experience to get the opportunity?
One of the biggest things, and I'm going to kind of make this a multifaceted answer. So the first thing is like the traditional job boards don't have all the jobs anymore. You want to check multiple different sites, stuff like Indeed, Monster Career Builder, LinkedIn, but add in stuff like AngelList, the Muse, and there's very targeted job sites for your sector now. It used to be like 3 or 4 main sites, and now it's splintered into a per industry specific job board. So that's my first piece of advice. Second piece of advice is do some volunteer, some internships, even if it's an unpaid internship and after hours, so that way you can gain the experience. And what it is do you use a cold email, and I'll talk about that in a second. Okay. Hey, here's my background. I'm willing to maybe spend 5-10 hours a week, as a unpaid intern to learn the skill set and work for your company and really just prove my worth. So that way, hey, I'm showing you that I'm the person that you want to hire. Another thing is so with that, another thing is like if you don't have experience, there's also a lot of college new grad programs. And most of the time, those you're not going to find those on the different job boards because there's so many applications coming through. Is looking at the different company. Like example, I was actually a college recruiter at Lockheed Martin for a while down in Orlando, Florida, and there's sometimes I'd have 500-600 applications coming through. Reach out, figure out what company has those, hop on LinkedIn and find an influencer and try reaching out to the influencer. But one thing when you do actually reach out to the influencer, don't just sit there and send a message saying, hey, please look at my profile and see if there's anything in your company of 200,000 people that would fit my thing, fit my background. Send them an actual, hey, I'm actually looking at this position 123 / da 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 da. Here's my resume. Would you be able to forward my resume to the recruiter or the hiring manager for that position? And the reasoning behind that is Lockheed Martin, I sat in just the Orlando office and there was 25 individuals just in that recruiting office. There was tons of offices. We had, I think, something like 200 recruiters. A recruiter can't keep track of everything in an entire company. So if you're able to give them enough information that they can just be like, oh, cool, awesome. Actually, the resume looks good. The person was extremely nice in the email, but they gave me I can look up position 123. Oh, that's Susie Q, the recruiter over there. I can just forward that over to them. And what happens with that is that resume is in front of the recruiter, so it has a higher probability of getting seen. Compared to the standard, it's the let me apply and pray for a position. I'm applying again and praying for a position. Applying and praying is a way to go nowhere.
Exactly. So you mentioned something very interesting. You talked about the influencer. How does someone know who is the influencer or not?
It's we'll say at big companies it's actually very hard. One of the things that you want to typically do is LinkedIn is one of my favorite tools. And don't pay for LinkedIn emails because nobody reads those nowadays. I'm a recruiter. I use those. Nobody reads them. But there's different software that you can use and to actually look up somebody's personal email address. There's Contact Out. It's a Chrome extension. It's free. And you pull up, we'll say if I pull up your profile on LinkedIn, I can actually get your personal information using open source data from that Chrome extension. So like, I'll give you an example. I'm looking for, I helped a friend with this recently who was at Uber. She was a facilities person at Uber. And this was before the whole like shitstorm went down where everybody's like, I mean, they have no leadership right now, but they're still operating.
Yeah.
So she's just like, hey, I've been here for 3 years. I've had a blast. I've learned a lot. And I want to go to grow my career to the next level. So I coached her. I was like, hey, you want to do what you're doing, but you want to go work for another successful, fully funded startup. I would recommend you search for your skill set and manager in LinkedIn and make it on a per city approach, and then search your top 20 places you want to work. So give you an example, like another startup, she's just like, oh, the XYZ person, facilities, oh, it popped up. Then she used that Chrome extension to get their personal contact information and then sent them a very nice, well-written email. So I told her, do that for your top 20. She got 2 offers out of the top 20, just positions that she didn't even find initially, but she was able to use that influencer using LinkedIn to narrow down on the city, the title, and then the zip code area, and then using a Chrome extension to pull that open source data to get that information. And it's a numbers game too, like everything else.
Yeah.
But guess what? You're going to have a higher hit ratio when you're going directly to the influencers.
So that's a great point. So it sounds like recruiting has become very technical now. You have to be very technical savvy from what I'm hearing.
There's a lot of technology that with recruiting now, but recruiting is still a people business. It's still connecting and developing relationships.
Sure. So how important do you think the resume is in this whole process? Is the resume still that important?
I think the resume is important. Actually, I still think the resume is important because as a recruiter, we're using keyword searches to go find a person within an area. So actually, real quick, that's going to kind of roll into another thought. If you're in Florida and you're looking for a job in Washington, D.C., use a friend's address in the D.C. market. Because as a recruiter, I'm actually sitting there typing in I'm a Java developer, this and that, this program, I need some Python too, searching within, and I start off by searching within a 30 to 50 mile radius of where the job's at. So if you're applying down in Florida and using a Florida address, you're never going to get picked up on my search in DC because there's so many other individuals that I can talk to here.
Even if you put you're willing to relocate?
Most of the time, recruiters do not go to that extra screen of people to relocate unless you are one of those so hard to find skill sets that everybody's fighting for you to begin with.
What advice do you have if someone doesn't have a friend or a family member in that other state they're looking to get to? Any other tips that they can use for addresses?
Hop on Zillow. Hop on Zillow and use an address from a nice house or a nice condominium in the zip code that you want to start focusing on. Because most of the time, in the resume process, nobody's going to actually really look at the address of the resume, except for to look at it as hey, is this person close? But if they're too far away, does the company have to deal with them relocating? Sometimes relocation isn't in the budget. So if you're willing to relocate yourself, and I do say one of the things to use is hey, even if you're using that address, hey, yeah. I'm using a friend's address. When you have the phone conversation, I'm actually planning on moving up to that area in a month and a half anyways.
Sure.
Even though your month and a half time frame is whenever you get the job, they don't need to know that, but you're being truthful with you're planning on moving up there.
Okay.
You have to tell a true story, but it has to make sure that you're going to be up there for the opportunity.
Sure. So we talked about that the address is important on the resume. Are there any other important components that needs to be indicated on the resume, like experience or skills? And
results. Don't just so many people will generalize their resume into just certain bullet points. Hey, I did XYZ. I'm a recruiter that supported a program, an Army program.
Yeah.
Even as recruiters, we see resumes every day, and we suck at writing resumes for ourselves. So typically don't hire a recruiter to write your resume. Hire a actual resume writer. Always go to pros. But when it comes down to it, I talk about the results. Hey, I was supporting a Army program, and I successfully hired, 125 TSSCI cleared people for the program last year. Use actual results on your resume and talk about like what you can, so that way you could show what you bring to the table. Most people don't do that. So when you're looking for a job, companies are hiring you to add value to the organization. So show how you've added value to other organizations. And my last quick tip is the top section of the resume underneath your name, like objective line, nobody gives a shit what you really actually want.
Oh, okay.
What you need to change is like make it a career highlights, or so that way, and make it like, we'll say your top 2 to 4 or 5 bullet points on how you've been successful adding value to an organization.
That's great advice, man. And to talk about the resume and everything needs to be included, there's always been back and forth on how many pages the resume should be. Is there a general rule of thumb, or is there an absolute black and white answer, or is it truly based on your level of experience?
I'd say it's like how long your resume is truly based on your level of experience. If you're a college graduate, most of the time you can fit your resume into 1 page. A page and a half isn't that bad. The reason why the 1-page rule was a big thing back in the 80s, and I hate that the mantra is still like so important now, is because back in that day you had to sit there and go like print out a piece of paper, take it to the hiring manager, and give it to the hiring manager. And if like anything more than 1 page, that second page always got lost on the desk with all the other crap. Nowadays, everything is a digital document. So like if it comes down to it, like, if you have 2 to 3 pages, that's additional search data that I can pull up on the resume. The most important thing that you need to actually think about is the 6-second rule. A recruiter is going to spend no more than 6 seconds looking at your resume before they decide if it's worth it or next. So like, when they talk about like, the first page, 1 page, or 3 pages, I need to be able to see what I need to see within the first 6 seconds to catch my attention for me to actually do something with your resume.
So with the 6-second rule, as a recruiter, and someone submits a cover letter, is the cover letter important in that process?
The cover letter is important within the hiring managers. Most of the time, the recruiters are not actually looking at the cover letters. So a lot of times, like, many recruiters that I've known and worked with, they don't even look at the cover letters. But sometimes if you need that extra sell to the hiring manager, it actually does help.
That's great advice. And I think one big question too, what advice or career advice could you give to non-managers looking to either rise up the ranks into management positions at their company? They haven't had any management experience, or even looking to move out of their company into another company to a management position.
So one of the things I would definitely recommend, let's look at it internally first. If you are looking at becoming a manager internally, you need to talk to your manager or the manager above your manager, a combination of the two. Like, you want everybody on your team. Talk about like looking at, and this is kind of also rolls into like asking for a raise. Hey, over the next 6 to 12 months, what can I take on additional projects, because this is what I want to make as my career path. Sure. Too many people just like let their career path just go up in the wind to wherever they go. You have the responsibility as yourself to design your own career path. It might not go the way you plan, but without a design, you're not going to go anywhere.
That's great advice.
So talk with your management, talk about what other responsibilities you can get and take on, successfully lead those responsibilities, and then use that as a growing opportunity. If you're not looking at staying, or they can't like actually move you up, still what that stuff to do like adds value, could add value to another organization. And that's where you can actually come in as typically like, I hate to say this is one of the biggest failures in corporate America is keeping and growing the internal talent you have.
Sure.
So, I will say, being a recruiter, you sometimes have to make a jump to another organization for the growth that you need. And don't be afraid of that. Actually, right now is one of the best times to actually make a jump, because in many locations and many skill sets, there are not enough people with the skills to actually take those jobs on. And one thing for maybe college, like new grads, is like, going back to your original question, like everything in college is so generalized education wise. Spend some time like learning some additional skill sets after hours. Learn data science, learn programming, learn people skills. people skills is one of the biggest like things that's not out there that's needed. And that's going to help you grow your career no matter what you do.
Sure. And you talked about making the jump. Now, sometimes making the jump means you have to start from the bottom and work your way up again. Is that necessarily a good thing or a bad thing?
So I will say, if you're staying in the industry and staying within your skill set, making the jump is not starting from the ladder like all over again. It's actually, many times it actually comes with a pay increase and increase in responsibilities. If you're looking at making a complete career switch, I will say I'm not the best advice person for that, because my job is to hunt out XYZ skill set and find them. That's when you have to start from literally the bottom. I'm probably looking at like internal, like, social equity. You have to start from all over again. But at the same time, like, I hate to say this, even if you want to stay somewhere, it's a high probability that you won't anymore.
Sure.
Like, either like you're going to be forced out. And I've talked to, unfortunately, so many individuals that plan on staying one place, and 3 years down the road, a switch in a program, or a program actually got outsourced out, and they're without a job. So, you have to be always branding yourself, taking care of yourself. But I believe in, while you're taking care of yourself, the biggest way sometimes you can take care of yourself is by constantly adding value to where you're at currently.
Yeah, that personal development is key. Constantly building yourself and improving every day is so important. So I want to switch topics here. I want to talk about interviewing.
Okay.
What best advice or things you can give to millennials that are doing a phone interview or face-to-face interviews? Any etiquette advice or dress code advice?
Okay, go ahead. Finish your question. Sorry.
No, that was pretty much it.
First of all, if you're doing a phone interview, actually, you know what? Let me take a step back. The most important piece of advice that I have out there is be prepared for the interview. Do some research. I can't tell you how many interviews people have done where all they've done is like looked at the front page of the company, and that was the amount of research that they did. Like, do your research on the organization and prepare for the interview. Write down like 10 questions that you think that you might get asked, and write down the answers to those. What it's going to do is, so many people try to like off the cuff. Now, if you're interviewing like all the time and you have the practice, like practice makes perfect. But if this is your first interview in 2-3 years, like, call up a friend. Hey, buddy, let's go get some wine. I need you to ask me these 10 questions, and I need to work on the responses. Very few people practice. And typically it's the people that practice and do well in the interview are the ones that typically get it.
Should they also bring their resume? Should they bring a portfolio?
So it depends on the job. Like, first of all, I will always say bring an extra few copies of your resume, because you're probably going to meet a few different people. You're going to meet, like, typically if you're sitting down, they're going to try to like interview with as many people as possible, or it could be a group interview, and you want them all to have your most updated copy of the resume available. If you are like a design person, definitely bring a portfolio, like your portfolio or quick samples or quick access that can be pulled up, for the hiring team. One thing I wouldn't recommend is, being an example of a business person or a finance person and bringing in a binder and sitting there trying to show the hiring team the binder of your financial statements that you've actually fixed.
Yeah.
I actually have seen that. So.
Okay. Probably not the best idea.
But it's being prepared. Like, sit down with a friend, grab a glass of wine, grab a cup of coffee, and like, hey, ask me these 10 questions. Let me run through them. Like, critique me a little bit. Don't critique me, but sometimes it's just like doing it will help you prepare.
Absolutely. And so let's fast forward just a little bit to the job offer. So now they've gotten a job offer, and any advice you can give to a millennial looking to make a decision whether or not to negotiate a salary or to actually turn down the job, what's the best way to handle those situations? So
first of all, I will always say, always ask. There's nothing wrong with asking for more money, but make it a nice ask. Like, make it like, hey, looking at this, I've seen these other opportunities pay this much. Is there any wiggle room? And try to make the wiggle room like, a $5,000 to $10,000 jump. Actually, recently was talking to somebody that, another recruiter that I was working with submitted the candidate, The candidate interviewed for this much, said it was good for this much, and then turned around when the offer and wanted $50,000 more.
Holy.
Right there, that just wasted everybody's time. Like you wasted your time interviewing, it wasted the team's time, and it's just like, and if you actually do come back within the time that recruiter's working, they're going to remember them and just be like, no. So like make it like typically a $5,000 to $10,000 ask, make it very nice, make it a reasoning, and don't give it like and I hate to say this about our generation because there's them out there that just feel like they're like, you need to, because I deserve it. That recently happened at another recruiter that I work with. One of their candidates got an offer, and literally they emailed back that they got about the asking for a raise to XYZ amount of money. Like, I deserve this. What that tells the team is just like, no, you don't actually deserve anything. AKA, you don't deserve a job. And sorry, your offer is now that you passed the deadline, and goodbye.
Yeah. And so my last question for you then is, what advice could you give to someone looking to stand out among other candidates? Obviously, jobs like finance, legal, engineering, there's so many applicants looking for some of the same jobs. What is the best way a millennial can stand out from the other candidates?
I say a lot of it is, focusing on your success stories. I think it's one of the, unfortunately, there's some people that just can overly sell themselves and it's a little too much. But there's a lot of very successful individuals that don't know how to upsell the value that they've brought into the team, the value that they've helped the company. And it's finding somebody, even if you have to hire a resume writer to help bring that out for you, you need to focus on the value add. And my advice is keep on adding value. The second you stop adding value, you're done with your career. You're done with that company. Companies only, you're hired to add value. And so many people forget that. And I would say other important things is keep reading, keep learning, and keep studying, because the game is ever changing.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, I think that's great advice. I think every millennial can get a lot of insight from what you had to say. Is there any other things you want to add towards the end?
Always be prepared. Unfortunately, with the economy and things have changed and times have changed and gas prices have gone up and the price of wine and homes have gone up also. Yes. You never know when your situation is going to change. So always be prepared. Always have your resume updated. Like sometimes I always have feelers out there. Be networking properly, not just showing up to like a networking event and just collect business cards and go home. Yeah. Actually start developing relationships across your industry with people that you respect.
Absolutely. Relationships are so important because those relationships tend to last a lifetime if you keep them right.
Absolutely. And, social media has dropped the barriers on being able to keep those relationships, has made it easier. So don't just keep it like superficial, actually have conversations behind the scenes, on Facebook Messenger, Instagram Live, and all those other things. So that's, I guess, the last piece of advice I have. So I hope that helped out.
That helped out a lot. Thanks so much, Ben. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much. Always a pleasure speaking with you, buddy.
See ya.
See you later.